name is Colin, and today I'm going to be bringing you another video. Today we'll be doing my top 10 favorite movies of 2019, and we made it to 2020. We are now in the 20s, the new year and the new decade, and 2019 gave us some fantastic movies this year. We had some damn great movies from some up-and-coming young filmmakers. You also had a lot of satisfying conclusions to the end of these big franchises, and you had some of my favorite filmmakers of all time adding another great movie to their filmography. And I just thought it was a great year for movies. Like, there were so many great movies this year, guys. And I want you guys to understand, this is my opinion. It's completely subjective. So if you disagree with my list, that's okay. And let me know in the comment sections what your list is or what your favorite movie of the year is. You might not have seen too many movies, so you might not be able to make a list. But yeah, so I'm going to give you 6 honorable mentions because I couldn't put in more honorable mentions. I want it to be more special. Like, these are the movies that were very close to making my top 10 of the year list. My first honorable mention is Doctor Sleep. Just overall a great sequel to The Shining, one of my favorite horror movies of all time. I love The Shining, and it expanded on Danny's story. Ewan McGregor was fantastic, and I just love Mike Flanagan's direction. It was a really great movie. Parasite, Bong Joon-ho, great direction, very original, and a concept that was executed very, very well. It's easily the best foreign film of the year. It's got some great editing and performances. Just overall, a really great movie, and it was very close to making the list. Robert Edgar's The Lighthouse was one of the best A24 films ever. Just, it's in black and white cinematography. Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe are fantastic. I honestly think Willem Dafoe should be nominated. It's like a psychological horror movie. It's just these two guys in a lighthouse going crazy, and I loved it. El Camino, a Breaking Bad movie, which I actually thought was going to make the list because I'm a huge Breaking Bad fan. It pains me to keep it off. It just wrapped up Jesse's story so great, and I liked a lot of the Breaking Bad Easter eggs in it, and just it's great getting back to that world. I loved El Camino, and it pains me not to put it on the list. Uncut Gems, Adam Sandler deserves an Oscar nomination, and I can't believe I'm saying that because the dude just made a lot of crappy comedies over the year, but this is by far his best film. I'm speechless for Uncut Gems. It's a really great movie, and it hurts not to put it on the list. And my last honorable mention is Rian Johnson's Knives Out. Just a fun whodunit murder mystery with a lot of great performances, very well written script with many subversive twists, and the humor and the tone of the movie worked very well. So guys, those are my 6 honorable mentions. I really loved all those movies. I'd give them all a very solid 3.5 out of 4 stars. But there were 10 movies I loved more this year. So coming in at number 10, I have Olivia Wilde's Booksmart. This was one of my big surprises of the year. Booksmart, it's a very original coming-of-age teen comedy. It's kind of like a female Superbad. It's about these two girls who basically want to cram 4 years of high school into one night and just go out, do drugs, party. And it was just a very relatable and funny, heartwarming film. It's really just a classic tale about friendship, and I could definitely see this movie getting a bit of a cult following because while many people did love it, it didn't do too well at the box office. So if, like me, you're in high school, I really suggest you watch this movie. It's a lot like Mean Girls, kind of like that, and it's got great performances. Everybody's in it. It's unique. It's got some fantastic editing, and overall, it was my favorite comedy of the year. Coming at number 9 is Ari Aster's Midsommar. Midsommar was very divisive amongst audiences. Like Hereditary, and I loved Hereditary. Hereditary is one of my favorite horror films of the past few years, and Midsommar, I honestly love it even more. It's about an American couple and their friends going to Sweden for this summer festival, and it's great. This crazy cult they get amongst. It is some crazy shit in here. And it's got some amazing performances, beautiful cinematography. The costume design is fantastic, and the score is so immersive and really haunting. This film has some really shocking and honestly at times disgusting imagery. Like, this is not a film for everyone, but I ate it up, and it's one of my favorite A24 films easily. I just love it. Overall, really great movie. Coming at number 8, Martin Scorsese's The Irishman. Martin Scorsese, he's one of the greatest filmmakers of all time. He directed Goodfellas, which is my favorite movie. And here you get what you expect. It's a Scorsese mob movie. Of course it's fantastic. You got Robert De Niro, Al Pacino, Joe Pesci, all giving fantastic performances. And I actually found the movie to be pretty educational. It really got me into that Jimmy Hoffa case with the Union and everything going on with JFK and the times, and it just covered that long period of time with the mob, and it was just a great movie. Very well written dialogue, and I get it. It's 3 hours and 20 minutes long. It's a long ass movie. But on day one, when it was on Netflix, I watched it in my uncle's basement with a bag of goldfish. I knocked it out in one viewing. It's a fantastic film. I haven't been able to rewatch it since 3 hours and 20 minutes, but really love The Irishman. It's the best mob movie I've seen in years, and it has some of the best performances of the year. Number 7 is Taika Waititi's Jojo Rabbit. Just a satirical masterpiece. And I'll say this, if the Oscars had a category for Best Child Performance, Roman Griffin Davis would win it easily. Look out for this kid, because he is such a young, talented performer. He's so good in this movie. Also, Thomasin McKenzie's really great, but the people that really steal the show are Sam Rockwell and Scarlett Johansson. I honestly think Scarlett Johansson should be nominated for Best Supporting Actress. She gave one of the best performances of her career, and not even the best performance of the year. More on that later. But yeah, it's basically a film that's satire on Nazis, and it's making fun of the bigotry that happened during World War II and the Holocaust. And it's surprisingly a very funny and heartwarming and emotional film. It's probably Taika Waititi's most mature film to date. And Taika Waititi was actually in the movie. He played imaginary Hitler for JoJo. It's a crazy one. It's a satire comedy about Nazis, but I freaking loved it. Coming in at number 6 is a movie that I knew I was going to like after I saw the trailer, but I wasn't expecting it to be one of my favorite comic book films of all time. That is Todd Phillips' Joker. Just such a roaring masterpiece. It is just great. It has lots of great social commentary on gun violence and mental illness, and it just gave me everything I wanted. It was a dark, gritty, depressing take on my favorite comic book villain of all time. It's got probably my favorite score of the year. Just very immersive, and it really pulls you in. Cinematography is also very beautiful. I love that it's based on Alan Moore's The Killing Joke, which is one of my favorite storylines, and I really love how it ties into the Batman lore. But what really carries this movie is Joaquin Phoenix. Joaquin Phoenix, in the last decade, has given us some of the best acting we have seen in a very long time, and he gave my personal favorite performance of the year here as Joker, and he just completely disappears into this role. He is so good as Arthur Fleck. Just because when I'm watching this movie, I don't see Joaquin Phoenix. I see the Joker, and I think that's the biggest compliment you can give this movie. And I know this film was controversial for some of its commentary on gun violence and mental illness, but I loved all of it, and it's just a masterpiece. It's one of the greatest comic book movies ever made, and it pains me not to put it in the top 5. Number 5 is Toy Story 4. Before I was even into Star Wars, Batman, or Lord of the Rings, I was a Toy Story fan. That original trilogy, I just loved them so much as a kid. It was my childhood. And when I heard they were making a Toy Story 4, I was a little turned off by the idea, because Toy Story 3 just had such a perfect ending. But I'll admit, walking out of Toy Story 4, I got everything. The film was funny, emotional, gave a satisfying ending to Woody's character arc, and I loved all the new characters. Christina Hendricks as Gabby Gabby was a really great villain. Tony Hill as Forky was fantastic. Keegan-Michael Kay and Jordan Peele as Ducky and Benny were so hilarious. And I loved all the new characters. Bo Peep was a badass. It had beautiful animation. And it had probably one of the most satisfying emotional finales of any film all year. Just very great. Probably one of my favorite animated movies in the last 20 years. It's one of my favorite Pixar films and one of my favorite Toy Story movies. Easily the best animated film of the year. Coming in at number 4. Now, we're getting to some movies that honestly would argue to be some of my favorite films of the decade. Number 4 is Quentin Tarantino's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. Damn it, I'm a Tarantino fanboy, and Leonardo DiCaprio is one of my favorite actors of all time, so I knew I was going to love this. It's just a great tale about Hollywood. DiCaprio's character arc in here, he's a struggling actor, and Brad Pitt has lots of swab in this movie. I honestly think Brad Pitt's even better than DiCaprio. He was fantastic, and Tarantino's direction's great. You have a lot of that quippy Tarantino dialogue, and the ending is fantastic. I mean, probably my favorite ending to any movie this year. And it's a Tarantino movie. He's my favorite director. He's got great soundtrack, great dialogue. I loved all of it. Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, I would honestly say it's one of Tarantino's best films to date. I just love it so much. Number three for me was probably the most emotional film of the year, and that is Marriage Story. Marriage Story just emotionally wrecked me. In the first 5 minutes, I fell in love with this couple and their love for each other, and then in seconds, it's just ripped away, and it's so heartbreaking. And it's just about a couple going through a divorce and how it affects the family. And Scarlett Johansson and Adam Driver give two of the best performances I've seen in a very long time. Joaquin Phoenix, I hope he wins for Best Actor, but if Adam Driver wins, I wouldn't be pissed. And Scarlett Johansson, she better win Best Actress because she gave easily the best female performance of the year. This is probably my favorite performance of her entire career. And they are just so effective. They work well off each other, and it's just such an emotionally like battering film. And it is also kind of funny and endearing at time. This film does have a bit of light humor that is funny here and there, but it's an emotional experience from beginning to end, and it's one I can't wait to rewatch in the future. It's easily the best Netflix movie ever made. I just love Marriage Story so much. All right, now number two and number one, I honestly could have flipped a coin at which one was my favorite, but as right now, again, these movies are hard to rank. Each movie on this list I love very much, so don't obsess about like how I'm ranking them. But number two is Jordan Peele's Us. Jordan Peele is on his way to being one of my favorite filmmakers working today. I adored Get Out so much, one of my favorite horror movies of all time, and I loved Us even more. Just Lupita Nyong'o gives one of the best performances of the year. I definitely think she deserves an Oscar nomination, and the music and the soundtrack is very haunting. And just this concept alone, it's very well executed. And the more you dig deep into, there's a lot to digest and tear apart in this film. And there's just many Easter eggs, symbolism, and there's just a lot of foreshadowing. It's one of those films that's going to be studied a lot in years to come, and it's definitely going to be a future classic amongst horror fans. Just scary, and it really blends comedy and horror well together. And just overall, Us is one of my favorite horror films of all time, and it was very close to being my favorite film of the year. But being the Marvel fan that I am, my number one favorite film of the year is Avengers Endgame. Now, I do think that Marriage Story and Once Upon a Time in Hollywood are better made films than Avengers Endgame, but Endgame's just my favorite. It's the movie I watched 3 times in cinema, and I've seen it multiple times now on Disney+. It's the movie I'm going to rewatch the most in the future. I had the most fun with it. And I just loved everything it did with these characters. I thought it gave satisfying conclusions to Iron Man's character when he's like, I am Iron Man, and he just defeats Thanos and his whole army. It was great, and it was so sad. Because I do think that Infinity War is a more fun movie because of how emotionally sad this movie is. Like, just a lot of scenes, like when Black Widow died, that tore me up. But that whole final battle is like a comic book fan's wet dream come true. Just seeing all these heroes together, it's fantastic, and Marvel earned it with the 11-year build-up to something that huge, and Avengers Endgame just did something truly remarkable. It has easily the best final battle to any comic book film of all time, and it's easily one of my top 3 favorite superhero movies ever. I adore Avengers Endgame. It's my favorite Marvel film. It's going to be the film I rewatch the most in the future, and it was my favorite film of 2019. Alright guys, so those were my favorite films of the year. Please let me know in the comments what were your favorite movies of the year, and please give me a thumbs up and subscribe for more future movie related content. Thank you guys for watching. Hope you have a good year and a good decade, and I will hasta la vista.